Right, ask the audience. So we've got a poll. Please look forward to hearing what people think. So the question is, what factor in your view has the greatest bearing on performance? Talent, work ethic, attitude, culture, incentive, fear? I think that's really interesting, fear, or other. So we're just seeing some answers coming through, and it's a two-horse race at the moment, it would appear, but fear's coming back a bit in talent. So we're getting work ethic, attitude, that's 50% of people. Culture, so the environment, and I think from an organisation point of view, that definitely makes sense as well. Talent, you know, gives you the seat at the table. And then I think fear is quite interesting because, you know, fear of not getting it right. People talk about fear of putting the jersey on, but again, Gareth Southgate, I was listening to his recent podcast and he was saying, well, the concept of feeling no fear is ridiculous because, of course, you're going to be nerves. It's how you channel nerves to be positive. So maybe you can sort of speak to some of that briefly, Bill, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, look, I mean, I tend to agree with Gareth. I mean, it's impossible not to fear. I mean, it's interesting. You know, I've stood on the Olympic start line on 3 Olympics, 6 days. You know, races are on 2 days. You know, I've seen athletes that have been world class in terms of leading into it, and you can see the fear in their eyes. You can see it there when you actually look at them, because we'd stand at the fence before they'd go off to race, and it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. I think the enormity of the occasion, there's fear, and it's more around fear of the unknown. It's fear around, you know, the possibility of failing. I think it's very, when you can get beyond that, and we're starting to talk in a really interesting space, when you can get beyond that, it's amazing what you can do. It's very rare that I've seen people be able to get rid of that fear and operate in that, what I call the zone. That's when you're talking about being in the zone, when fear is not a factor.
Fantastic. We're going to get through some questions, and then I just want to speak about the Olympics briefly as well, after it's an Olympic year. So Ron wonders, you stated that the UK overtook us in high performance development. Was the London Olympics the driver for this?
Yes, I think it was. I think they'd been gaining momentum for a long time. I think they actually recruited a lot of Australians through that early part of the noughties and had that. But what they did was they built out a really good system. One of the things that they did really well that we struggle with still is we have a federated model. And I think anyone that's if we're all in the COVID space right now, we understand the strengths and weaknesses of our federated model. That is still our greatest challenge.
So in sports as well as in the pandemic?
Yeah, hugely biggest challenge still. I've been 30 years and it's still the same issues. I think we're navigating it a lot better than we did in the past. I think there's a lot more dialogue around it. I think there's a lot more confronting it. But I think what the UK had as an advantage was they didn't have that federated model, so they were able to actually deliver a system that was coherent, logical, consistent. I think you'll find if we get the 2032 Olympics, which I'm pretty confident we will, you'll see an absolute stimulus in this country that will be akin to the 90s leading up to Sydney.
Amazing. Question from Julie, and then Julie McKnight, and then we'll get into talking about the Olympics. So, and this is really something that happened. We see this regularly in businesses as well. So what's the one tip you'd give someone who's about to take over the management of a team of which they've never worked with before? How do you lead a group of strangers, basically?
Good question. I always talk about going slowly to go fast. There's always this sense of urgency. You know, you get parachuted into a role, you get given a task, and there's an expectation around speed of movement. I think there's danger in speed when you're in that situation. I think you've got to learn, sometimes it's to listen and say less. You need to get the pulse of an organisation before you actually make decisions about what you're doing. And I think as opposed to coming in with a set of, this is what I'm going to deliver, you need to understand an organisation. There was an AFL coach that I worked with who I hold in very high regard, and he said he came into a football club and he had a really clear vision about how he wanted to play the game. and he wanted to imprint this game plan on this group of players.
Yep.
And he said he was sitting there 3 or 4 weeks in, and they weren't getting it.
Yeah.
It wasn't taking shape. And he said he realised that he had a different set of chess pieces on the board.
Yeah.
And what he said was he had to rearrange his game plan to sync with the chess pieces.
Yeah.
And when they came together, his game plan was that group played a lot different game plan based on their nuances, their context. So I think the story being is be patient, be slow, understand the environment, have the conversation, listen, and be prepared to agile and adapt from what you might have gone into the building with.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think to Julie's question as well, before you even go into that environment, make sure you ask the questions of, your leader in the business, or if you're running a business, the board, whatever it might be, or your direct manager, what their expectations are around timeframes, and get a steer on how reasonable they're going to be. And, make sure you are trying to set yourself up to succeed, as well as the role you're going to do. So I think it's important to try and get a steer on some of that before you go into the position as well.
And look, again, referring to my present role, all those things you just referred to were pre-acceptance conversations from the CEO to my direct manager. And, my question was, how long are you intending to be?
Yeah.
And I got the answer that I needed to hear. And then, it was really important that we realise what the space that I'm operating now will have some short-term effects by Paris in 24.
Yep.
But what we're doing is a 6 to 10 year delivery point. So we're now looking at 28 LA and 32.
Yeah.
And we think that the true ramifications of the work we're doing will be in that latter part of this decade.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're going to talk about the Olympics. So firstly, on the chat function, everyone, if there's any particular sports that you're interested in watching in the Olympics, please share it. Bill, so how are we, being Australia, going to do in this Olympics? Firstly, what's your view around, is it going to go ahead?
I'm pretty confident it'll go ahead.
That's great.
Different question about whether it should go ahead.
Yeah.
If you ask the Japanese, we know that right now it's a fairly hot topic within the confines of Japan. But I think, what are we, 6 weeks out? I think it will go ahead. I was in conversations. I'm in regular conversations with people that are, either heading out or about to head out. There's a lot of movement latter part of June, early part of July towards competition. People have to understand this is a completely different experience to the norm. Yeah. So the ones that we normally see on TV, the experiences, this is a completely different game. Will be a turn up, live in a bubble, very controlled environment. Yeah. They will go in. Most of these people will go in with less than normal preparations. Yep. It'll be deficient in terms of international competition. Yeah. Typically, over the last 3 to 4 months, there'll be periodic international competitions that you'll expose yourself to. There won't be a lot of that. There'll be people that will be short on that side of things. Yeah. There'll be to and from the venue, perform, back to your bubble, to and from the venue, so forth. And then it's out. There'll be no, typically when your event's over, there's a relaxation period, there's a socialization period. So it's a completely different experience. There's a lot of talk around the value of the gold medal in this Olympic experience. I've heard people say, oh, it's a devalued medal. Hey, the medal doesn't care, right? The medal has no concern about the fact that it's COVID. Yeah. Games. It's still going to sit on someone's neck, and it's still going to live in someone's life for the rest of their life. And in some ways, an Olympic gold medal from Tokyo will have a tinge of being even more special because of the circumstances. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think personally, I understand, should it go ahead, shouldn't it go ahead? But I find a great lot of solace in watching sport, like so many other billions around the world. So, I think it gives us something to look forward to, quite frankly, in my opinion. Well, I think it's really important too to put yourself in the shoes of the athletes. Definitely. It's an incredibly, in some events, it's 1 day in 4 years. Yeah. And if you miss that cycle, and I've seen this done where people will miss a cycle, there are amazing stories from 1980 and 84 with the boycotts where people miss their window. I've seen it in individuals I've worked with. I've seen illness intervene the day of an event, I've seen illness come to the fore, and that person being compromised in their ability to perform on that day. It's incredibly difficult to tell a young athlete that your window's closed.
Yeah, exactly. We're nearly out of time, but gold medals. What are our best three chances of gold medals, Bill? We're not going to hold you to it, but rowing.
Yeah, I sort of thought about this question. I mean, swimming obviously always throws up. We have a solid platform in swimming. I think we know that's our launching pad. I think we always have success across things like rowing and cycling. I think our hockey team, our men's hockey team, have been outstanding. They've been outstanding. They've got outstanding coaching. The question is, they're going to be short on international competition. The Dutch and the British and the Belgians and the Germans are just driving across the border to hit balls at each other. So I think there's always surprises. Like, you would have heard of things like skateboarding, for example. People probably don't know it's a new Olympic sport, but we've got some of the best skateboarders in the world. And they're as young as 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. And so I think there's an array of possibilities.
Yeah, it might be quite interesting to design your skateboarding coaching program.
Hey, we're already having conversations.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting example of the paradigm shifting in coaching, because typically skateboarders just skate. Suddenly you've got people that are, you've suddenly got people managing them and helping them. So, look, I think there's a range of possibilities. Women's water polo is another one. I think basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball. There's possibilities. But I think it always anchors off the fact that we have solid representation in swimming.
Yeah. And do you think having swimming typically at the start of the Olympics is quite a good thing for Australia, because we get in there, get some scoreboard pressure? Do you think that's the thing in the Olympics, the scoreboard pressure?
I think it's more a media thing. I think that, the team and the Olympic Committee, I think they don't get hung up on that because they're so entwined in what's got to be done every day. I mean, you're talking about a massive organisation, 600 or 700 people working.
Wow.
I think it's a media thing more than anything. I think the media drive the scoreboard pressure, but obviously there are disappointments that emanate from early days, and all success. It can do one or two things. It can lead to a flow-on effect. I've been in the village when I've seen people come back in from winning a gold medal, and I've seen the way that the village, in being the Australian team, thrives off that.
Yeah, definitely.
It brings in an energy. It brings a. We do Olympics very well in Australia. Our Australian Olympic Committee does a very good job.
Yeah, fantastic. Good stuff. We're out of time. Bill, thank you for your time. Pleasure speaking with you this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Davoren. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.